All right, so today we're going deep on something I know a lot of you hotel and restaurant owners out there struggle with, and that's building a really strong team culture, one that's built on collaboration.
Yeah, for sure.
We've got some really cool insights to unpack today from Maurice. He's a real pro in the food and beverage world, so let's dive in.
Yeah, he's got some great stuff. And I think for owners, it's easy to get caught up in the day-to-day, just keeping things running. But Maurice really gets at the heart of why this whole team culture thing is so important.
Totally. He's really emphasizing that it's not just about checking things off the list, but creating a space where, like, everyone feels connected and actually contributes to the bigger picture, like the success of the whole restaurant.
Exactly. It's about making collaboration something you do every day, not just like, oh yeah, we should do that sometime.
Right. And he talks about team meetings and, really listening to your employees, which, on a surface, it sounds so simple. But I bet there are a lot of owners who would say, yeah, easier said than done. What do you think are some of the biggest things that get in the way of owners actually listening to their teams?
I think the biggest one is just how fast-paced everything is.
Yeah.
You're constantly putting out fires and just trying to keep up, and it's hard to stop and really listen. But that's exactly what Maurice is saying we need to do. Even if it's just for a few minutes each day, like in a quick team huddle, those little moments where you actually hear what your employees are saying can make a huge difference.
Yeah, he also talks about checking out what the competition is doing and not in a like copycat way, but more like what are they doing well and how can we learn from that, whether it's how they're greeting customers or even just how they plate their food.
Right. And he really stresses the importance of looking at the why behind what they're doing. Like, is their greeting so great because it's super personalized, or is their table turnover really fast because of how their system is set up? So it's about understanding the principles behind what's working, not just trying to do exactly what they're doing.
Now, this next point is super interesting. Maurice talks about figuring out what your employees are passionate about and then using that to assign roles. So, like, maybe you've got a bartender who's obsessed with craft cocktails, let them revamp the drink menu. Or if someone's super outgoing and great with people, have them train new hires. How can owners actually figure out those passions, though?
Yeah, it's about paying attention, seeing what people naturally gravitate towards, who volunteers for certain tasks or who's always reading up on the latest trends. You can often spot those passions just by observing and having casual conversations.
Love that. And kind of building on that, he talks about encouraging learning through teaching, like having employees teach each other. So maybe your pastry chef does a workshop on dessert making. It's not just about sharing skills, though, right?
Right. Maurice really believes that when you teach something, you learn it even better yourself, and it creates this really cool dynamic where everyone's supporting each other and learning together.
Yeah, totally. And then he talks about empowering people at all levels, even something as simple as having a server lead the pre-shift meeting. Why is that so important?
Well, it gives people a chance to step up and practice those leadership skills,
Yeah.
and it shows everyone on the team that you trust them and that their contributions matter.
And what about new hires? Maurice seems pretty adamant about getting them involved in collaboration right away.
Absolutely. He thinks that fresh perspective is so valuable. They're not stuck in the same old ways of doing things, and they often have great ideas. Plus, it makes them feel like part of the team right from the start.
Yeah, and he's a big believer in listening to every idea, no matter how small. How do you create that kind of environment where people actually feel comfortable sharing anything?
He talks about building psychological safety, which basically means that everyone feels safe to speak their mind without being judged.
Yeah.
It's about encouraging people to contribute and then giving them respectful feedback, even if their idea isn't quite right for the moment.
That's so key. And then finally, he touches on developing future leaders through delegating and mentoring.
Right. And he suggests starting small, giving people manageable tasks with clear instructions and then being there to support them. It's about slowly giving them more responsibility and freeing yourself up to focus on the bigger picture.
So he basically breaks it all down to three core pillars: listening, trust, and commitment, which honestly, that's a pretty good recipe for success in any area of life, but especially in a restaurant or hotel.
Couldn't agree more. And he makes it clear these aren't just buzzwords. They're the foundation for creating a team that's not only productive, but also happy and resilient, able to handle whatever challenges come their way.
So for everyone listening, think about this. What's one small thing you can do this week to boost one of those three things? Listening, trust, or commitment within your team. It might be a small change, but it could have a ripple effect.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into Maurice's insights. They're definitely food for thought for all of us in the hospitality world.
For sure.
Until next time.
See you then.